All right. Good morning. Good afternoon. Happy FSMA Friday to everybody. Welcome to the November 2019 edition. We're great to have all of you. It's nice to be back. I haven't had an opportunity to host in a little while. We've been trying to change things up, keep it fresh for you. I hope you've enjoyed some of our guest hosts and presenters, but it's fun to be back. I'm Ryan Sharp with SafetyChain Software, and looking forward to another good session here as we get together going into the holidays. For those of you that are new, and first I should welcome back all of you. There's a lot of familiar faces. It's one of our favorite parts of this series that we get so many returning folks. And but if you are new, this is the longest standing industry update. We are going on, I think, 6 years now. Originally really started around FSMA and all the news and craziness that was going on, and over the years it's evolved to be more of an update. And really in the last probably year or two, we're starting to kind of shift again a little bit to focus more on kind of strategy and technology and industry trends and real tactical things that you can use in your businesses. And one of the great advantages here is always the opportunity to not only hear from but interact with the experts over at TAG, who have been our co-sponsors and obviously the curators of all the great content we share on these series. So we are proud to continue our partnership with them and appreciate the wisdom they bring each and every month to this. We try and obviously introduce different folks with different areas of expertise, as we're going to do today as well. So if you all keep coming, we love putting these on and appreciate you making time to continue to be part of it. So just real quick housekeeping stuff. Again, a lot of you know this stuff, but this is really an informal thing. We're starting to go back a little bit to our roots, which is more of an interview style, more conversational. So part of this is to have that conversation with you. So if you have questions, we'll do our best to get to those. We'll save those for the latter half of the interview. But if you have something that pops in your mind, use the question box, shoot those over, and we'll try and sift through those at the end. If we don't get to them all, we do always have a promise that we will get to them offline and share them with you directly and/or in our LinkedIn group for FSMA Fridays. So you'll notice only the panelists on here. So when you do send a question, it's not being broadcast to everybody. And we are recording these. We have an awesome, huge library. So if you go to our website at SafetyChain.com under resources, you can see the entire library of all the FSMA Fridays videos going all the way back. You can even look it up on YouTube as well. And if you have any audio issues, our team's online here, and you can hit us with the chat if you're having a little problem. But typically it's phone or computer audio, and just flip-flop usually does the trick. So today we're going to get into a quick update on FSMA and just some things that are happening there. And then we're going to focus on our topic, our conversation today around food safety programs and culture, which is great and a hot topic we hear a lot about, and obviously work to get into some Q&A. So with that, I'm excited to introduce not only a new member to TAG, but I believe the first timer here to FSMA Fridays is Dr. Liliana Casal-Wardle. She's the Senior Director of Food Safety at the Atchison Group, also known as TAG. Fascinating background. I highly recommend you connect and look her up on LinkedIn. But in short, about 25 years of experience in private industry. She held technical and global leadership roles, managing food safety and product quality at the Hershey Company from 2002 to 2019. So like many of you, spent a large part of her career at a large company. She's got a number of areas of expertise, including food safety, food science, food defense, environmental monitoring, and GFSI, and a whole lot more. She's a PhD in organic chemistry from the University of Buenos Aires. Hope I said that right. I'm trying to impress her now. And she's a SQF practitioner in FSMA PCQI. So with that, welcome, Dr. Liliana Casal-Wardle. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for welcoming me. And I am very happy to be here, to joining all of you. Hello, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here and to be chatting with everybody. Thank you, Brian.
Excellent. No, we're so glad to have you. Thank you for being here. And she gave me permission to just call her Liliana. She's just kind of kind and just wonderful like that. So we're really excited to have you here today. So we're gonna dive right in. And one of the things we like to do each month is just kind of talk about the lay of the land with FSMA, what's moving and shaking. So can you give
Mm-hmm.
us a quick update on what your team is seeing out there? Anything for us to be aware of? It looks like foreign supplier verification programs has some stuff going here.
Yeah, so as we all know, FDA is trying to have a more global approach, has high concerns on product that comes from foreign facilities, and they took another dive into the program, looking into more a question and answer model, and to highlight what is required for those facilities that has to follow the standard requirements and those that don't. Very focused on record keeping, which we know FDA is, and we know it's the success for every facility is a strong record keeping, one of the successes. Okay, so really, when to be very simple, it continues to enforce that those that follow the standard requirements have to have strong record keeping on their hazard analysis and evaluation of preventive controls, a very strong foreign supplier verification program that follows FSMA requirements, and adequate verification and related activities. Okay?
Okay. Very, very good. And it looks like you have a one of your blog posts here, so we'll make sure to get that up for everybody in the FSMA Friday group on LinkedIn. So good opportunity to plug that. We have a LinkedIn group if you haven't joined it already, where we share a lot of the slides and answers that we don't get to during the course of the interview. So I'll make sure and get that posted, Liliana, there. But thanks for
Thank you.
for that update.
I joined the group yesterday, so I'm
all
excited.
right. Perfect. Now you can get direct access to you. That's perfect. Well, so this month we were talking about the direction to go with the topic, and this was suggested by Liliana, who is very passionate about this. I think you'll get a sense of that during the conversation, which is aligning food safety programs with your culture, right, to minimize risk. And we run another kind of training education series called Beyond Compliance. We do once a month. This has become one of the hottest topics and most highly attended webinars that we do. So there's a lot of interest in this. So this is the first time we've done this on FSMA Fridays. So I'm excited to kind of hear a new perspective and see what you all have to share on this, and particularly with your background. So so kind of starting at the top here, I think, Liliana, what we hear from food safety culture, it's kind of like a unicorn. It's kind of hard to find, it's hard to define, it's hard to measure, and so people know it's important, but they're having a hard time like sinking their teeth into it a little bit, right? So from your perspective, when they do focus on improving that food safety culture, how does that help a company manage risks in the supply chain from your perspective?
So, I mean, FSMA provided a direction on the requirements that had to be met, what were the pillars of the program, what kind of hazards you had to highlight, how you have to manage the risk of those, if you had to implement preventive controls, how to manage those preventive controls, how to verify them, how to validate them, good record keeping, good tracking, and all that requires the biggest component of all, which is the people that are going to do that. And
right.
the people that are going to do that, you require to develop that people and to drive them to the process, first of understanding, and second, on continuity of the model.
Mm-hmm.
And to drive that, it was kind of a no-brainer that had to happen, that you had to think of, how do I succeed in having the workforce understand, the teams that I have from small to big, from a very small business to a large business, how do I succeed so that they own it, they understand it, they want to do it, and they can do it consistently every day.
Right.
And the way to do that, you're already using your education and training tools, is incorporate those into a model of a culture where you're building the behavior, you're creating empowerment, you are delivering understanding to the people and allowing communication. I've developed plans and assessed plans for many facilities. And when you get involved, when you show the leadership, when you participate and ask the questions to the workforce, when you show them that they know what they're doing, they understand it, they can give you great feedback, they passionately start interacting with you and providing solutions and discussing how to do it better, that allows you to, those programs that have to meet regulatory requirements become empowered because they add their personal component for you to incorporate it to the program for good execution. Now, this does not mean that you're going to let the workforce, this morning they came with a great idea and they're going to decide, okay, I'm only document the temperature every 5 minutes because I think it's better. This does not mean that. It does not mean free to do whatever you want. It means work together to develop, implement, monitor, follow, and improve on a model of continuous improvement those programs so that they become the strength of the facility. It also means that the leaders have to believe in that. So the leaders have to believe that in order to do this, okay, the leaders have to walk the walk, okay? Not just say, I want to have a culture and then go back to their office and just sit there and ask you the next morning, how's it going? They have to be seen on the floor of the facility. They have to talk to their employees. They have to be bothered for the same things that are wrong that bother the employees on the floor. And I can give you examples. Like when you do a walk on a plant, okay, and you see the brooms on the floor or no labels on the trash can, simple things for GMP, okay? But if the leaders are walking every day, if the supervisors are walking every day and it doesn't bother them, the operators, that's the new normal. I mean, it's a simple model. If it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother them all. So you're living with that, okay?
Right.
So it has to start by you saying, how do I do this better? I mean, what is my source of risk? My source of risk is if I do it wrong, I'm going to fail. If I fail, I'm going to have costly recalls, product that is not going to be able to be sold, that you're going to have to dispose of, downtime to clean, all that impacts the facility. And every manager in supply chain is looking at his bottom line and his costs and his efficiencies. And so food safety has to be incorporated in the efficiencies of the facility and has to be part of the operational standards and the everyday KPIs. And once you have that and you incorporate it to the culture, then the strength is there because the employees understand it and are empowered to, okay?
Right. That's key, right? They got to understand it. Both those, and we're going to talk a little more about each of those. How, with your experience, both, obviously in your prior life and what you do now, how often is it overlooked or just not understood, even at the leadership level, the connection between the risk and actually having that culture help it?
Actually, much more than what we imagined, because it's very hard to integrate the idea on a technical side. Is that behaviors are going to be the ones that are going to rule, okay? There's a thinking that if you have the programs, if you have the forms to report them, or you have automatic recording, and if you have those, you have food safety, okay? So what they have to bring into the mindset is that people component that requires to build the accountability, to build the empowerment, to build the education and training, to build the recognition in them, so that the wheels move. And what keeps the wheels moving in any successful program are always the people. Okay? If the people are not owning it, it does not succeed, and at the end of the day, it's going to have more costly incidents, more extensive incidents, and repetitive incidents, because there's just no ownership. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's good, and that kind of leads to the next piece here. And in order to get that buy-in and backing, I guess you could say, right, is tying it to the risk. A lot of times when we are talking about technology, it's about making a business case, and so sometimes you have to understand, like, what is it doing and how do you measure it. So this is really interesting, and I think this is important. What a lot of the conversation around this topic avoids is this question. So we're posing it to you direct. But in your experience and what you're helping clients do now, how do you measure this, right? How do you measure that it's working, and how do you show, you mentioned KPIs, right? How do you actually start to tie those things together so then leadership goes, oh, this is helping avoid risk, or this is helping us, improve, whatever it is you're working on specifically, or so what's your approach to this?
So every facility is going to have direct KPIs of performance for the food safety programs that they have, okay? And it's going to be based on consumer complaints, which is a reactive KPI, because things have already happened and sometimes have happened even a few months ago when you get the information from the consumer. And then they have in-process KPIs that are going to show line cleanliness, environmental monitoring, ATP, verification of cleanliness, product testing. All those are existing KPIs, okay?
Right.
But how do you measure behaviors? And there's a very interesting article that GFSI published, which is a position paper, because GFSI is the standard for auditing food safety, for a kind of global model to audit food safety. And the culture has become more and more a component in the auditing models, including for FDI. So, I mean, if you have an FDA audit, if you have an FDA audit now, the investigator, they're investigators now, not inspectors, but the investigator is going to go to your facility and they're going to observe, okay? They just don't go there just to look at documents. They observe what people are doing. I mean, I had experiences where the inspector was there for half an hour looking at a line where people had gloves, looking at what they did with their hands, how they were, what were they doing with their hands. And then after looking at them for a long period of time, they ask, okay, what's your program for this? Okay, because they're looking at the behaviors of the people. And the expectation is the program has the components of training and education. So measuring KPIs for culture has to do with measuring the performance of the behaviors. And it could be done through adequate training, through programs that, like your consistent and frequent audit programs, and look at the trends of behaviors on those programs, trends of improvement, trends of non-failures. So while in a food safety system, you're measuring the moment when you do an audit, in a food safety culture, you're measuring the trends of performance, okay? And looking and measuring the engagement. And that could be done through interviews, I mean, the empowerment of the people, the feedback, the understanding that they have. So the pillar of training and education, the pillar of empowerment are very, very critical. And as I was saying, GFSI has this great position paper where they integrate and they provide the guidance to integrate the programs with the behaviors and show the drivers, the necessities of the leaders and managers throughout the organization as establishing the pillars and how to drive the culture, giving strong value to communication and education, and metrics on communication and education. How often are you training? What are you training? What's the response? What's the understanding? Your best KPIs are understanding what your workforce is doing to deliver it right. And your preparedness on that is going to determine how successful you are, even if you have a recall, in having a less impactful recall.
Right, and that's what everyone really cares about on the safety side there. And I think this is good. So I'm hearing from you trending, right, and being able to measure that. And if we were to insert where we say food safety culture on the technology side, it's about having that data first, and then after you've implemented a program or software or whatever, in this case, a food safety culture program, seeing where it goes. So you do have to be able to measure what you're doing, and that's a key part of this as well. But I like that trends of performance, and I think that can really tell a powerful story when they start seeing some of those things, reduce in terms of maybe non-compliances or other issues. So let's move now to, you have a program in place or you're starting it out, and sometimes what happens with these, Liliana, is people get excited and you start it, and maybe for the first 36 to 90 days everybody's involved, and ultimately it just becomes another thing to do, or it's one more checklist or whatever it might be. So what are some tips that you have from your experience or what you see with successful clients to keep this thing going and continue to grow and get stronger in terms of that culture?
So, and what you said is very important, okay? Because always when you bring a new idea, a new program, people are very engaged, very happy, and they all want to participate, and they all have ideas. And so, in order to keep the continuity of the program, you have to look at it a little bit like a marketing model, where you're going to have very strong communication, continuous strong communication, and that communication has to be growing. The other pillar that you have to maintain is the empowerment of the team. How you keep the team empowered through training and education, through communication, and through recognition models. And the recognition models are going to be more positive than negative. Of course, there's sometimes a need for a negative recognition model, but build the trust so that people can tell you what they did wrong also, and they feel that that's not a problem and make it a learning moment. That helps really to build a culture. And in your maturity model, make sure that you keep the flame going. It does not become another QA program. If the model of the culture becomes a QA program, and the CEO of the company decides that it's the QA department that's going to manage it and tell him how it's doing, and the marketing people don't get involved, and the sales force doesn't know what it is, the culture is not going to survive, because the food safety culture has to become a part of the company culture. It has to be led by the leader. I love the models when you see that the leaders have it as part of their objective, and they put an objective on food safety culture and a target on food safety culture as part of, and a target on food safety also as part of the objectives for the company. And those are cascaded to all the activities, because everybody has a little piece of the pie in food safety culture. When you design a product, you have to look at food safety culture. When you design a line, you have to look at food safety culture. When you're going to send it to the market, you have to look at food safety culture. In your distribution model, who's going to take this product? You have to look at that, because that trucking company that is going to drive your product is going to do it today, tomorrow, next week. Those suppliers that are going to send your ingredients are going to be sourcing all year round. So you're going to build that into all the pillars and all the areas of your company so that you succeed. And be honest with yourself and set up your standards. If you feel that you gave the ownership to QA, you're in a reactive model. If you feel that anybody in your area can drive it, then you're more independent and you're becoming really a driver of food safety culture. Okay?
Yeah, that's good. I have a feeling, Liliana, you're getting a lot of head nods. I think the type of folks that join us on this couldn't agree more, and are maybe either challenged with getting started or challenged getting that buy-in. I think there's some good tips in there. I like the idea of it does need to be bigger than just food safety or FSQA, where they're leading that charge, and all of you listening, you're so passionate about it, but it is getting the marketing folks and sales folks and the executives, everybody supporting that. And so it's not all on your shoulders, but you do have to lead the way, and that's great. And we appreciate that. We know the people on here are trying to do that, and today is about trying to maybe fill in some of those gaps or give you a few tips to help you with that. So let's kind of wrap up too. I think sometimes when we do something that's challenging or new, it's important to understand why. I think there's some obvious reasons to this, but as we think about the end result and we communicate, it's important for obviously our teams to know why and our executives to know why. From your perspective, you talk about the consumers. What do they get out of this? Does it make a difference at the very end of the day? What's your take on that?
Well, the consumer has the expectation, and it's a strong expectation that what they're going to buy is good. Okay, I mean, food is a necessity, and it's also a pleasure. I mean, it's something that you enjoy, the things that you like, and the consumer has the expectation that he is not going to get sick. And if we think that 1 in 10 consumers could get sick according to the World Health Organization, that is a huge risk area. So everybody has the responsibility, and we own it to the consumer. And the consumer is ruthless, okay? I mean, if you do it wrong, they remember it. And they remember it much longer than what it takes for your company to recover, okay?
For sure.
I mean, what works every day, everybody takes it for granted. What doesn't work, we keep it in our minds and we say, oh, don't buy this. Remember? And probably was 4 years ago. So usually companies that have big failures, it's very hard, very costly, and very burdensome and painful to recover. So, I mean, my take is, remember that the consumers have very high expectations, okay? And wants to buy your product more than once. So give them what they need, and think that building a culture is not a cost savings model, is not a resource reduction model. It's an excellence program, okay, that you're going to build to succeed.
I think that is a good way to finish there, and important to remember for sure. We just have a few minutes, Liliana, and I want to encourage anybody who has some more questions, and I'll touch on the ones that I can here. One that's come in here is actually asking more tactically, do you have some templates on how to measure employee behaviors or any suggestions on how to actually do that piece that you had mentioned earlier? Because I think that was important.
So specifically templates I don't use. I believe in one-on-one communications. I like when I want to model and work on creating KPIs for employee behaviors, I like to create a model of supervisor to employee short trainings, 5-10 minutes, okay, where it's not a lecture, it's more communication where people can ask questions, share ideas, discuss, and a repetitive process that you can go building, and compare that to the improvements that you see. So build like a double matrix, like you start building a training. I'm going to give an example. For example, you're going to train on GMPs, okay? Employee GMP, dual renal. So you start building a training on that, and you start tracking in your weekly audits, in your bi-weekly audits. The more you do, the better. Fast pace. You start tracking, how is that changing in your facility? How many employees are really following the rules or not? How many have had things in their pocket position, have had it, okay? And that's your tracking. I mean, tracking behaviors and tracking recognition, tracking satisfaction, and tracking lack of failures is the way to track it, okay? So each plant should build their own model according to what are the drivers that they're seeing now for risk.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that 101 is important. We sometimes forget we can't make everything a checklist. I do want to share, I think it came from Natasha. Natasha, one thing we've seen on the technology side is at least customers are using our software, they have that insight into a particular issue they're having because they have the data. And so what they'll do is they'll kind of focus that culture conversation or training, like Lillian had mentioned, around a specific thing. and then they'll create a report to actually watch that. And you can actually even drill down individually, see who are those people that need those one-on-one conversations. So it's also about having the right data so you can do that trending that Liliana is talking about, and you complement that with training and coaching. And I think you can make a pretty significant and quick impact is the feedback that we hear as well. We're at the end of our time, but I want to ask kind of my question. I always like to, when I get one of you folks on the phone, Liliana, which is, if I think everybody who's on here understands the value of food safety cultures and what they can do. I think often the big challenge is, where do you start? I think they're probably passionate about it, they talk about it, but actually integrating it, what would be a simple kind of first starting point you would recommend to those that are kind of in that position?
I think to me, a good starting point is starting with the senior leaders, setting up the objectives, okay, and working on what the targets are going to be, a good timeline on how you're going to implement it, and then identifying the three biggest risks that you see on the floor, and develop a campaign. And as I said, a marketing campaign with visual aids, with communication, with engagement, to start changing that. And don't want to be over successful. You don't want to change everything in a week. You're not going to reinvent it. Right. So, small steps, like you say, okay, I am going to change the way people behave on the way people manage GMPs, or I am going to change the cleaning and sanitation model so that there's more awareness and less reactiveness. And you focus on those pillars, you drive your timeline, you build it, and then you're going to see how your model goes maturing and your model goes growing and expanding.
Okay, I think that is great advice, very specific and very timely given the time of year. So as you're maybe thinking about your plans, goals for next year, this could be something to work into that. So I think that's really helpful. Thank you, Liliana. We really appreciate it. For those that want to share the recording today, we'll have those posted. You can go to our website at SafetyChain.com, and you can get access to not just today's, but the entire library for FSMA Friday and all of our other free content that's on there. Feel free to jump in and enjoy. Also, another really great resource is the AtchisonGroup.com website. They have one of the industry's best newsletters. It's a must read, so highly recommend you get on there and sign up for that. There's also on their blog some great stuff, including the link we'll share today that is talking about the Foreign Supplier Verification Program. And then I mentioned early on, we have a LinkedIn group, so you can join us on LinkedIn. So you can do that before you hop off here today, and we'll post information and updates there as well. It's also a good chance to have an opportunity to connect directly with the consultants at TAG. And then we will get together for our last session of the year on December 20th. And want to thank all of you as we go into this Thanksgiving holiday very much for supporting us. We know we have a lot of great customers on here, and just people who have helped build this wonderful community. So we're really grateful for all of you and the work that you do every day, and we'll continue to do our best to support you. So we hope you and your families have a wonderful, safe, fun holiday, and we will get back together in another month. Until then, have a great one, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you all. It was a pleasure, and same thing. Best wishes on the holiday for everybody.
Excellent. Thanks, Lily. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye.